The Great White Shark attacks again in Jaws the Revenge, the fourth movie, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the theater. And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. That's one of four movies we'll review this week, and the question I always have is, when you see the shark at the top of the water, you only see its fin coming out, and yet when you get the shark's point of view, like we just saw,
looking at the people,
it's like its eyes are above the water, too. That's a logical error among many logical errors.
You've got that right. We saw the same movie. I'm Gene Siskel, the Chicago Tribune. All the major players are gone from Jaws the Revenge, except Roy Scheider's wife, and her name is now just a trivia question. Ellen Brody, played by Lorraine Gary, wife of the boss of MCA Universal Pictures, which happens to make the Jaws movies. 3D failed to save the series the last time out. This time an idiotic script sinks the whole show. The premise, Ellen Brody is a widow. Roy Scheider's character has died, meaning Scheider has enough sense to know when to stop bilking the public. And his wife in the film is convinced that a great white shark has a grudge against her family. Now, you can just hear those sharks talking. I'm going to get me a Brody if it's the last thing I do. I guess that's what they say.
Very realistic. Shark talk.
I know. That would have been more interesting than the movie. Anyway, here's an example of Ellen Brody's spear. The scene is very early in the picture, so veteran moviegoers should be able to figure it out. Like they say on Saturday Night Live, I hate when that happens. A dream sequence. People were groaning in the theater when that happened. I mean, I want to go up and punch a hole in the screen.
They were groaning when that happened. How about the next dream sequence? Another It's Only a Dream.
I can't stand the dream sequences. Why do they do that in the movie? If there's anything that annoys an audience, it's the dream sequence. I hate that stunt. It's old, it's cheap, it's a lousy gimmick, and I wish they would stop doing it. And then that describes the whole movie. You want to probably see what the shark looks like. They show more of it this time, and by showing more of it, actually, at the end, it sort of looks fake. As for the final confrontation, Michael Caine plays a pilot who joins Ellen Brody and one of her sons, the other's dead, and one of his friends in trying to drive the shark crazy by first making it swallow an electronic beeper box, death by noise.
Helen, try to start the engine. Son of a... Let's get out of here. No, it's too late, Hoagie. He's going to come forward. Give me a hard point. Right. Keep us steady. It's going to come back. He's down.
This movie is so badly made that the death of the shark isn't even set up well. There's a key shot missing so that we don't even get the whole picture. We walk out of the theater very frustrated. And that last scene is preceded by one of the most glaring errors in recent movie history. Michael Caine has been in the water, has swum to safety onto the boat, but in the very next scene, his shirt is as dry as if it had just been freshly laundered. Let's hope this is the end of the Jaws series. The first film was thrilling and well acted. The rest have been trash.
It's not even the next shot. Michael Caine actually comes over the rail out of the water, and he's totally dry. I was sitting in the theater, and I said, his shirt is dry. The preview audience appreciated that. I always hate it when people talk during the movies, but I don't know. That seemed to go over pretty well.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. I may be very badly confused here. In this, usually am. In this movie, this shark wants revenge against the Brody family.
You got it.
Yes, okay. Now, in the first movie, what happened to the shark in the first movie?
Dead.
Blown to pieces, right?
Yeah.
What happened to the shark in the second movie?
I know, dead.
Yeah, right. What happened to the shark in the third movie? They all die. They all die. So in that case, what shark is this?
A friend of the other shark.
Is this like a cousin, a nephew?
You got it.
A next door neighbor?
And you know what's so great?
What?
You see, by having this gimmick, that means that even though this one dies, she still is going to stay living in that stupid town instead of moving into the Middle West where she should be, away from sharks.
So in any event, all sharks have a revenge against the
You got
family.
it.
Right, okay, I got that. Okay, next movie.
Live in Iowa is the answer.
Okay, right. Our next movie is something that's fairly rare as a commodity in today's movie world, a love story involving adults. teenage love stories are a dime a dozen. I mean, it used to be teenagers went to the movies to see adults making love on the screen. Now adults go to see teenagers. I don't know. Anyway, I guess they think love stops after you get to be 25, but that is not the case with A Man in Love, a thoughtful and passionate new movie that stars Peter Coyote as the temperamental American movie star who goes to Italy to star in a film and falls in love with Greta Scacchi as the actress hired to play one of his lovers. Here's the scene where they see each other for the first time, and it's the worst scene in the movie. Her father is an alcoholic journalist who wants to interview Coyote. She's already told Dad he's on his own, but now look how she reacts when he's forcibly ejected from the movie set.
And don't think you wanted to pay something for this. It's not over just like that, you know. Not over.
Hey, wait a minute. He's not a dog. He's a journalist. He's only trying to get an interview. Mr. Elliot, that man is my father. Look, I really wanted to do this film. You know, I really wanted to play Gabrielle, but now, as far as I'm concerned, you might as well just take this part and stick it up your...
Excuse me, miss, excuse me.
The whole timing of that scene seems phony to me, but before long, the movie is back on track as Coyote romances Scacchi over dinner.
Will you stay with me tonight?
Yeah.
Coyote has a very complicated private life. For one thing, there's his gopher, played by Peter Riegert, a man hired to pick up after Coyote's emotional upheavals. He springs into action when Coyote's American wife, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, arrives in Rome too early one morning.
You look skinny.
No. You want some sugar?
No.
Would you rather go outside? Whatever you want.
I don't care.
One of the intriguing things about A Man in Love is trying to figure out the title. At first, it seems to refer to Coyote falling in love with Greta Scacchi. Then there's a story about Scacchi's drunken father and his love for his dying wife, Claudia Cardinale. Then there's that love that Peter Riegert has for this egotistical genius. But finally, I figured out the person Peter Coyote's character is really in love with in this movie is himself. The movie has great dialogue, complicated emotional situations, and love scenes between Peter Coyote and Greta Scacchi that I thought were, frankly, really erotic. And that's because her character always seems to keep her sense of humor in this movie. Sure, she likes this guy, but she knows he's crazy, and she takes that into account. Good performances, an interesting movie.
I didn't think it was an interesting movie because I didn't care for this guy at all. I know he's supposed to be an egotistical bore, and there's a way of making an egotistical bore interesting. For example, Jack Nicholson's character, in terms of endearment, is sort of egotistical, but he's exciting. This guy, I didn't want to watch him anymore. Peter Coyote is an interesting actor, but I found I wouldn't want to be with him. I didn't want to see his friends serve him. I didn't want to see the women love him. I thought the woman having the dying mother was extra baggage. I wish there had been more scenes involving Jamie Lee Curtis. Frankly, when Jamie Lee Curtis walks on the scene, I'm wondering, this guy is a real jerk. He should be with Jamie Lee Curtis.
So this character really gave you a lot to think about, in other words, right?
Yes, all the reasons why I didn't want to watch the movie.
But what you're asking for is that all characters in movies be attractive.
No, I'm not.
This guy is an egotistical monster.
No.
That's what he is. He is a character who's exactly like that, and that's what the movie is about.
Yes, I know that he is, and I say, as I said before, there's a way of making that interesting.
What about the whole idea of
a way of making that interesting or a way of making it boring? In
this
case,
I think that they
boring.
found the way to make it interesting. Coming up next, Mark Harmon from TV's St. Elsewhere stars as a teacher assigned to supervise rowdy students in summer school.
Been chosen to teach summer school. Ah, shoot.
Easy to make an engaging movie about summer school, sort of a hothouse, animal house. But the new movie, Summer School, fails. It's one of those package deals that just evaporates in your mind, with Mark Harmon from TV's St. Elsewhere playing a high school athletic coach stuck with the job of teaching remedial English to a bunch of bad students during his summer vacation. That's if he wants to hang on to his job. At first, though, he protests the assignment.
But I ain't no English teacher. See? Double negative. No, I hand out basketballs, check for jock straps. I'm like very challenged. No, I'm not a real teacher. That's all right. These aren't real students. They're unmotivated, irresponsible, not too bright. They'll relate to you. I appreciate that.
The only part of this job he really appreciates is that he gets to meet another teacher played by Kirstie Alley.
You're a semi-charming guy and a real snappy dresser. You're just not the kind of guy I date anymore.
Yeah? What kind of guy you dating now?
Oh, the kind who wears socks.
I got a pair somewhere. White ones.
Most of the movie involves the kids cutting up, as on this field trip to an amusement park where a couple of the kids are disappointed by the park's roller coaster called the Screwdriver.
Screwdriver was an utter disappointment. I was hoping for a headache or pounding temples, a blackout, anything, but, I feel fine. Actually, my headache is gone. Thumbs down.
Dave, I'm surprised. I found the Screwdriver simply delightful. Fast corners, that third loop was a nice surprise. The line moved fast.
Is he okay?
No, Anna Marie, it appears that he's vomiting.
I think vomiting is a little overreaction to this movie, but it saddened me because it's shocking that this is Mark Harmon's first starring role in the movies after 2-bit parts. He's very hot with TV audiences. You would think that he wouldn't want to start a major movie career, he would hope, with a bomb. But somebody obviously talked him into a very dim-witted project. He can cash the check, but he won't win any fans. I'm very surprised when TV stars do this. They have all this popularity, and then they throw it away into something so safe and trivial.
This movie couldn't have been good. It could not have been good. This screenplay could not have seemed to anybody as if it, even at its best, could have been any more than just a routine summer movie, and it's not even that good. What shocks me, it was directed by Carl Reiner, who made All of Me with Steve Martin, a great movie.
I was stunned.
This film is totally out to lunch, and there isn't even any lunch. I mean, this is an absolutely innocuous, forgettable, non-existent movie. Last week we talked about that movie that we had trouble remembering.
We can't even come up with the name of the title.
This one, once again, give people a quiz a week after they've seen it. If they can answer any question of substance about this film, they're either geniuses or they have a lot of room for extra storage material in their head. This is a nothing film. I think I made myself clear.
I think you have.
I hope I have.
And we agree. Coming up next, a gutsy young English girl shocks her neighbors with her freewheeling attitude towards sex in Wish You Were Here.
Wish You Were Here, and this one is a real jewel with a great performance by a young British newcomer whose name is Emily Lloyd. Remember that name. She plays a teenage girl in England in the years right after the war and in the early 1950s. And her mother's dead, her father is a drunk, and she's a rebel who decides that it's fun to shock people. One thing she knows, there's no future in being a beauty operator.
Look what you've done to my hair.
What now?
It's nice. No. Look at this.
Oh, shut up, you silly fat cow. You can always wear a hat, Linda.
She notices that all the lads in town are sex mad, and she teases them just to frustrate them. At the bus company where she gets her next job, she puts on more of a show.
What about a knickers? You're fired. You're fired. No, you're not. Just you. You're fired.
But for all of her scandalous behavior, she knows next to nothing about sex, and the boy she chooses as her first lover has learned everything he knows by the close study of Hollywood movies.
Cool. Look at you.
You fancy me?
Not half as much as you fancy yourself. What kind of cigarette is that?
Du Maurier.
Really?
You're the best.
Toothpaste.
I'm going to make love to you.
Do bloody hope so.
And you get a taste there of how spunky she is. She's really got a great personality, and that guy obviously has been looking at too many Ronald Colman films. Wish You Were Here tells a sad story, though, of a girl who has been emotionally abandoned and whose high spirits are condemned by her society just because she's a young woman. This could have been a really depressing story, but it's not, and the reason it isn't is Emily Lloyd. She gives one of the great debut performances of recent years, and what she does is rescue the depressing story with the force of her own unsinkable personality. She's always fascinating to watch in this movie, and no matter what happens to her, and a lot of unhappy things do happen to her, we somehow know that she's a survivor, and this is a terrific movie.
It's a terrific movie and a terrific performance, and there's a great tradition, actually, in the movies of young women being rebels and paying for it, and young women mirroring society and its flaws back to society. And this film is in that great tradition. I'm thinking of pictures like A Nose Amour, Pretty Baby, like Louis Malle. Usually a lot of French films do it. It's great to see it done now in England. I'd like to see it done in America. I mean, this is a very special kind of film.
The director of this film said in an interview over at the Cannes Film Festival, where I saw it, that so often in interviewing women who grew up in the 40s and 50s about their early sexual experiences, she found that they were almost always awkward, that they were almost happy, that they were almost always involving a great deal of ignorance and misinformation. And this is a movie about that, about a woman whose spirit and whose self-worth are not destroyed by the fact that she has to go through all of this really bad kind of stuff.
I think this would be a great film for, talk about teenage film, this would be a great film for teenagers, boys and girls, to see, because I think they would relate to it and maybe learn something from it.
Could be. Coming up next, the major event in pop culture, the 50th anniversary of Superman, and we'll look at a couple of vintage videos starring the Cape Defender of Truth, Justice, and the American Way.
For our weekly home video segment, the fourth Superman movie is out in theaters this weekend. Warner Brothers would not screen it early for critics. Not a good sign of a rule, as you know. So we thought, in honor of Superman's 50th anniversary, we'd look instead at some vintage Superman films that have been newly released on home video. And my pick is a silly little trifle called Superman and the Mole Men, a 1951 film made just as the TV show was getting started. Lois Lane, however, here is played by Phyllis Coates instead of Noel Neill on TV. George Reeves, however, is Superman. The story is about a couple of nice mole men from the center of the Earth is hollow, in case you didn't know it, Roger, who are greeted by hostility by ignorant townspeople. The film, of course, is trying to teach us not to be afraid of strangers. These mole men look like midgets with shower caps, and they come to the surface after some Texans dig the world's deepest oil well. The mole men are nice to a little girl, even playing ball with her, but when her mother appears, well, you know adults.
It's getting pretty. It sort of shines all over. Are you magic?
Love that scream. The men in town go crazy, and it's up to Superman to put down the vigilante mob.
It's men like you that make it difficult for people to understand one another. You were warned nothing had come of this but trouble.
What's interesting here as you see this film, Roger, is that they're not nice to Superman. Remember how the townspeople we all think love Superman? These guys hate Superman. So it's actually kind of campy fun to watch this picture. It does, of course, recall one's childhood because it's so close to the TV show. It's not a great film, but nostalgia is worth something, and I didn't mind sitting through Superman and the Mole Men. I like looking at guys with shower caps on their head. It's a lot more interesting, frankly, than Summer School, and that I do mean. It's not a gratuitous remark. This movie, with all of its screwball things, has some quality to it. I only fast-forwarded a couple of times on my tape player.
I know what you mean when you talk about Summer School. We laugh at these old movies, but actually these movies were sincere in really wanting to entertain people.
You got it.
And if you look at my selection, I took this serial that came out in 1948 or 49.
Yeah.
The special effects are really bad, as we're about to see, but they're bad in a way that shows that somebody was really trying to, they didn't have any money to make a rocket ship, but they made the best rocket ship they could. And
I like that.
That is a spirit that's been lost. The movie opens, of course, with the origin of Superman when he escaped the exploding planet Krypton as a baby in a small rocket ship built by his father. Now look at these special effects. On Earth, the super baby is adopted by the Kent family. When he comes of age, they give him his mission in life.
The world needs a man of such extraordinary capabilities. That is why you must leave this farm. You must go where they can be best put to use.
That's Kirk Allen as Superman. Here he is on a case.
Oh, that's the window. The door is over here.
Yes, I know. Up, up, and away!
I love the way he opens the Venetian blinds there. It's just a good thing the window was open.
Yeah, I love the line he has to say, up, up, and away, as if, either you can fly or you can't. Up and away just doesn't make it.
I always thought that up, and away were the magic words that made him fly.
Try it next.
I really knew, but it was Shazam, Captain Marvel. That was the magic word. The funny thing about Kirk Allen there is that he's credited in this movie as playing Clark Kent. and the credits say Superman is played by himself. So they didn't want to destroy the illusion.
I wonder who his agent was. Okay, let's recap our reactions to the movies on the show. We both hated Jaws the Revenge and can't believe that this is a film that Michael Caine stayed on location for instead of picking up his Oscar in Hollywood for Anna and her Sisters. 2 thumbs down. We split on A Man in Love. I found Peter Coyote's character to be a smug bore, but Roger felt this adult love story was passionate and thoughtful. His thumb is up, mine's down. And Summer School ought to carry one of those barcodes like a product at a grocery store. It's a cheap, generic summer movie. Totally mindless, 2 thumbs down. And finally, 2 thumbs up for I think the best film on this show, Wish You Were Here, featuring a smashing performance by newcomer Emily Lloyd as a rebellious, hurting, but surviving young woman.
Emily Lloyd is really somebody to look for. Now I want to make a correction from last week's show. We reviewed Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I complained because the movie was reformatted into widescreen instead of the golden frame that it used to be filmed in, taking off about 25% of the total picture. And at one point I said, look at that little bird flying off to its parent's nest. You can't see the nest. Well, it turns out in the original movie you couldn't see the nest either, and so I stand corrected. That bird just flew off into the forest. But I'm still correct that the 25% of the picture is missing, and that's a shame, I think.
That's it for this week. Next week, 2 more big summer movies. Timothy Dalton stars as the new James Bond in The Living Daylights, and The Lost Boys, about teenage vampires. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.